She posted the damn selfie at 9:12 a.m. I know that because my nephew, standing barefoot on the deck behind me, shouted, "Uncle, you need to see this," while still holding his cereal spoon. I turned, hedge clippers in hand, and saw his face, half disgusted, half stunned. He was holding his phone out like it was radioactive. "It's her," he added. "Your wife." I took the phone. There she was, my wife of 11 years, sitting up in bed, wet hair, bare shoulders, some guy's hairy chest partially visible in the mirror behind her. The caption? Just one word, upgrading. Not even punctuation. Like the grammar didn't deserve her time either. The sheets weren't ours. The room wasn't ours. And the smirk on her face definitely wasn't mine to recognize. It was one of those smirks women post when they've already convinced themselves they're the victim in a story they wrote themselves. The kind of look that says, "I've been through so much," while actively burning the ground behind them. I stared at the image for a few more seconds. My nephew shifted awkwardly, mumbling something about going back inside. I handed him the phone without a word and walked past the rose bushes, through the back door, down the hallway lined with family photos she insisted we keep even after she stopped acknowledging I was in them. In the study, behind the old roll-top desk, there's a drawer I hadn't opened in nearly a year. It sticks slightly when it's humid, but I knew how to slide it sideways, then lift. Inside, a blue folder, unlabeled to everyone but me. Its real name was written inside in bold Sharpie. Contingency. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel much of anything. But something old and heavy inside me finally stood up. Here's the thing. If you're still reading this, you're probably one of the 90% who haven't hit that subscribe button yet. It takes a second, but for us, me and the small team helping bring these real stories to life, it means the world. Really, that little click tells us someone out there still values calm, strategic revenge served ice cold. And it keeps this going. So, thanks for considering it. Now back to the story. I slid the folder out, placed it flat on the desk, and opened it to the first page. A copy of a deed transfer agreement signed 7 months ago by her, her father, and me. Me being the nominal grantee of record, per their wording. I remember her giggling when she signed it. "This is just paperwork, right?" she said, flipping her hair like the pen was a toy. "Of course," I answered. Next to that document was a notarized affidavit I'd prepared but never filed. Until now. It required one condition, a marital separation. Not divorce. Not infidelity. Just legal separation, which, as of 15 minutes ago, I had already printed and was ready to submit first thing Monday. The caption on her selfie was upgrading. My response under the post. Confirmed. Public. Simple. No hashtags. No emoji. But the meaning landed. Within 10 minutes, her sister texted me. "What the hell does that mean?" I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone and spent the rest of the morning doing what I do every Saturday. Except this time, I trimmed the hedges closer. Much closer. Stripped the dead branches back until only the bones of the shrubs were visible. I wanted everything around the house to reflect the clarity I was feeling inside. Because here's the part she forgot. You don't humiliate a man who reads every clause before signing. You don't mock the guy you asked to hold the title for a few months just to help your father skirt a lawsuit. And you definitely don't post a selfie in another man's bed when the house you're lying about still has his name in legal black ink. She made it public. I was about to make it permanent. Her father poured himself a third glass of that overpriced red wine he always pretended to enjoy. Some Bordeaux he couldn't pronounce, but claimed to have acquired through a friend in Geneva. Right. Geneva, Ohio, maybe. I sat at the end of their long oak table, the same seat I'd taken every Friday night for the last decade. Her chair next to mine sat empty, of course. She was probably still curled up with her upgrade, sipping from a glass of something cheap and calling it independence. Her cousin, Dale, the one who tried to sell me on crypto mining in 2019, nudged me with a smug smile. "So, rough morning, huh?" Then he chuckled and passed his phone around the table. There it was again. That photo. That damn smirk. As if we were all in on the joke. Her aunt looked at me over her salad fork. "Well, I suppose she's moving on," she said, with the half-pity, half-relish tone they'd all perfected over the years. The kind of voice that says, "Poor you," but really means, "Told you so." I set my napkin down slowly, looked around at all of them, wine swirling, smug smirks, the quiet thrill of a public betrayal giving them just enough oxygen to feel important. "She already signed," I said, taking a small sip of water. Her father squinted, pausing mid-chew. "Signed what?" I smiled. "You'll see." Silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like absence. It feels like suspicion setting its first root. Her mother blinked twice. Dale's grin faded just a little. Nobody at that table remembered what I remembered, or they pretended not to. 6 months earlier, her father had called me into his office, which he referred to as the war room, even though it mostly housed golf trophies and unpaid vendor invoices. He was in a bind. An old property in the Berkshires he'd purchased under a shell corp was now being threatened by a pending lawsuit from a former partner. He needed to move ownership, temporarily, until the litigation cooled. "We just need a clean name," he said. "Someone not directly traceable to the company. Someone family." I asked questions. Of course I did. I always ask questions. But I didn't object. Not out loud. He handed me a draft contract. Said their real estate attorneys had already prepared everything. "You'll be the nominal grantee," he explained. "Just sign here. You're not actually owning it. It's just optics." I said I'd think about it. But what I didn't tell him was that I had my own attorney look it over the next morning. Together, we added a line, barely half a paragraph, slipped in near the bottom where the legal boilerplate began to blur. It read, "In the event of legal separation or dissolution of marriage between wife's name and me, full beneficial ownership reverts to title holder effective immediately, waiving all contestation by third-party familial entities." And she signed it, with a joke, a laugh. She even made a comment about, "Well, I'm not divorcing him yet, huh?" Her father didn't read it. Or maybe he did, but was too arrogant to care. Either way, the ink dried. Now, half a year later, they're passing her betrayal around like un hors d'oeuvre, thinking they've won something. They don't know they handed me the knife. They don't know I've already started cutting. Her brother, the one who once said I was the help with a ring, poured more wine and mumbled, "So what's next for you, man?" I smiled again. "I'll probably go up to the lake house this weekend, just to get some air." The table quieted a little. The lake house was theirs. At least, that's what they thought. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to argue. The truth was already signed, witnessed, and filed. They just hadn't opened the right drawer yet. But Monday was coming, and the folder was ready. It happened on a Thursday, late afternoon, the kind of gray, washed-out light that makes even good decisions feel like accidents. Her father's lawyer was the one who suggested the trust structure. He looked like someone who'd overdosed on golf and underdosed on ethics. You know the type, cufflinks with initials, fake concern in his voice, and the kind of smile that vanishes once the ink dries. They called it a protective structure, to insulate the estate from an ongoing civil suit tied to her father's acquisition of a neighboring parcel. That lawsuit wasn't public knowledge yet, just another one of his backroom blunders. Their family name couldn't be directly on the deed while things simmered, so they needed a placeholder. A temporary arrangement, the lawyer said. 6 months max. You'd simply be the nominal grantee. The title's yours on paper, but everything else remains unchanged. I remember sitting there, listening, sipping cheap conference room coffee while they spoke about millions of dollars like it was a casserole dish someone forgot in the oven. Her father leaned forward. "Your family. We trust you. This would be a huge help." Funny, coming from a man who once called my landscaping company a glorified chore service. But I nodded, slowly, quietly, because I already knew how this would end. See, when people like him ask for favors, they assume you're too stupid to see the strings. They underestimate silence. They think dignity is what you wear to court, not what you plan behind closed doors. So I didn't ask for changes. Didn't negotiate. I played dumb. It's amazing how cooperative people become when they think they're the only ones holding the map. We sat in a room the size of a suburban kitchen. Just me, her father, and their attorney. 2 pens, a stack of paper, and 3 signatures. And nestled near the bottom of page 7, buried between legalese about indemnification and operational clause expiration windows, was one small addition I'd personally included. In the event of legal separation or dissolution of marriage between wife's name and me, full beneficial ownership reverts to title holder effective immediately, waiving all claims of transfer of beneficial interest by familial or marital relation. No one questioned it. She even giggled as she signed. Like we're getting divorced. Cute. Her handwriting looped fast. Always did when she was being dismissive. I could see her already checking out mentally, half scrolling through her phone, eager to get back to her wine club or whatever podcast was telling her she deserved more than a man who fixed his own roof. I just nodded. One slow nod, like I was agreeing with her joke. But I wasn't. I was marking the moment. You know, some men leave breadcrumbs. I plant landmines. Later that evening, back at home, She was already in bed when I slipped the second signed copy into the safe behind the furnace panel in the basement. The good safe. The one with the fire rating. Right next to the contingency affidavit I'd had notarized months earlier and never filed, because some parts of a plan you don't trigger until the timing makes it hurt. Every now and then, I'd glance at that folder when I was down there changing filters or stacking supplies. It didn't taunt me. It didn't scream for attention. It just sat there, waiting, like all good leverage does. Because people like her, and her father, and their little wine-soaked legacy clan, never believe their own signatures can betray them. They think betrayal is loud, obvious, public, but betrayal is usually quiet. It's legal. It's filed at the county recorder's office under standard business hours. And in this case, it was sitting in my hands. Notarized. Stamped. Already done. She had smirked in someone else's bed. She had no idea she'd already signed over the keys to mine. Monday morning, 8:14 a.m., I parked between a rusted-out Subaru and a landscaping truck with its trailer gate hanging halfway open. The county recorder's office shares a strip with a shuttered donut shop and a chiropractor who advertises walk-ins and energy realignment. The kind of place where billion-dollar paper lives in drawers that still smell like toner and hand sanitizer. I dressed plain. Worn boots, flannel, windbreaker. Just another guy handling paperwork. The manila envelope I carried was already pre-labeled. No folder. No briefcase. No drama. Just signatures. Real ones. Inside, a middle-aged clerk with one eye on her coffee and the other on a slow printer nodded me toward window 3. I stepped up and slid over the documents. Morning, I said. Deed update. She flipped through them, bored but efficient. 2 pieces of ID. 1 certified copy of the notarized separation, filed exactly 20 minutes earlier in the next building over. 1 updated deed showing transfer of beneficial ownership. She ran her highlighter along the top margin of the trust structure. Trustee Schiff, she asked, glancing up. Per clause 12, I said. She didn't blink. Just nodded, stamped, signed, scanned. The echo of that mechanical stamp. That was the only noise that mattered. Effective immediately, she said. Appreciated. It was done. No suit. No courtroom drama. No yelling X. No camera crews outside. Just a quiet room with beige walls and 6 people who'll never know the depth of what passed across that glass. I walked back out into the parking lot and let the sun hit my face for the first time in what felt like years. A strange feeling, not freedom exactly. Not relief. Just finality. Like the moment right after you toss the match and before the fire reaches the curtains. It's not flames yet, but it will be. By noon, the $4.3 million estate, lakefront, for bedrooms, cedar roof, guest dock, full solar retrofit, was mine. Fully. Legally. Irrevocably. It said so right there in the county's digital database, next to a time-stamped entry and my full name in bold. Not hidden in a trust. Not part of some shell holding. Just mine. She didn't know yet. Neither did her father, or Dale, or anyone in that insufferable dinner party circle they floated in. As far as they knew, I was still the idiot in boots who showed up to trim his own hedges and drive a 2008 truck with a dented tailgate. Good. That's what made this work. I got home around 1:30. The place was empty. She hadn't been there since the weekend. Probably still recovering from her digital mic drop. I didn't touch her things. Didn't bother going into the master bedroom. I went straight to the router. Typed in the admin password. It was still L0V always 2020. Hers, obviously. I changed the Wi-Fi name to confirmed. Set the new password to clause 12. I stood there a moment longer, watching the blinking lights on the router. A storm was coming. The legal kind. The kind where people start checking their messages more carefully. Start rereading things they signed while distracted. Start whispering to each other like the paperwork can hear them. But it wouldn't matter. The signature was real. The clause was real. And now the house, the lake, the land, the dock, even the damn hot tub her father once bragged was imported from Sweden, was mine. She posted a selfie in someone else's bed. I posted a deed in the county registrar. Let's see which one echoes longer. Tuesday evening, 6:42 p.m. sharp, I walked into their sprawling colonial like I always had. Same cloying jasmine candle burning at the entry. Same silver-framed portraits on the wall, graduations, weddings, fundraisers they threw for causes they never actually researched. Everything about that house screamed, "We matter." Even the carpet runner on the stairs. Too plush for comfort. Just expensive enough to suggest taste without taste. Everyone was already gathered in the dining room. Clinking glasses, half pretending this was just another family dinner and not a full-blown emergency disguised as duck à l'orange. Her father sat at the head of the table, swirling wine with the kind of tight-lipped anxiety that only comes after a very specific type of bad email. I nodded to the group, handed my coat to the housekeeper who always smiled at me longer than she needed to, and took the same seat I always took, third from the end, near the window. The place I was allowed to sit. Not the head, not the middle, not part of their legacy photo ops. Just there. Background man. Her mother, ever the hostess, tilted her head and offered a thin smile. Well, she said, I suppose we can skip the small talk. We've all seen the post. There were snickers. Even her brother let out a little huff through his nose. Her father cleared his throat, placing his phone face down on the linen tablecloth. Let's just be adults, he said. No need to let social media drama spiral into chaos. Dale, the cousin with the investment scams and the condo he pretends he owns, grinned. I mean, I thought it was funny. Savage, but funny. I looked around the table. Funny, I echoed. Sure. Speaking of which, I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small stack of manila envelopes. One for each of them. I laid them out like playing cards. What's this? Her father asked. Clarification, I said, since you all like the word. They hesitated. Her cousin Chelsea, the one with the communications degree she still brags about, opened hers first, pulled out the paper, started reading, then stopped. What does this mean? She asked. Dale leaned over her shoulder and read aloud, slowly, fumbling over the legal phrasing like it was a foreign language. In the event of legal separation or dissolution of marriage between her name and my name, full beneficial ownership reverts to title holder effective immediately. The table went silent. Her mother stood up so fast her chair scraped against the marble tile. She grabbed her envelope, flipped through the pages, then snapped toward her husband. What did you sign? He was already pale, sweat creeping around the edges of his temples. No, that wasn't. That clause wasn't. It was, I said calmly, pushing my plate away untouched. Page 7. Third paragraph from the bottom. Initialed by both of you. Dale flipped his sheet back and forth like there might be a trick hidden in the paper itself. Wait, so you own it now? The house, the land, the trust assets. I shrugged. It's not about ownership. It's about execution. Her brother leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You tricked them. I met his stare. No one got tricked. They just didn't read. Her father finally spoke again, voice low and sharp. You were supposed to be the nominal grantee. A placeholder. You were just there to keep it off the books while we dealt with litigation. And I did, I said. To the letter. For 6 months. No issues. But then she posted a selfie. And I filed the paperwork. Per your clause. Her mother looked like she might throw the wine glass in her hand, but she was too well trained for real scenes. Instead, she just whispered, You knew this whole time. You were waiting. I was prepared. I corrected. The cousin with the communications degree spoke up again. But the house, the estate, that's family property. Was, I said, until you all put it in writing. I stood, slowly, calmly, not gloating, just done. You laughed, I said, nodding at the phone still buzzing silently on the table, probably with group chat reactions to her little bedroom PR stunt. You all laughed. I turned toward the door, paused only to glance back one more time. Laugh now, and I walked out. Through the same foyer where they'd once joked about me not knowing which fork to use. Past the same coat rack where I'd once hung up a thrift store blazer that got me a lecture on appearance. Into the same driveway where, not long ago, I was just the help with a parking spot. Now I was the owner of the lake estate they built their legacy on. All because she wanted to make a point online, and forgot which document she'd signed offline. The first call came at 10:37 p.m. I let it ring twice before answering. Not because I needed time to think. I just wanted her to sit in it a little longer. Her voice came through like static wrapped in mascara. What the hell did you do? I didn't say anything. She sniffed, then continued, her tone already laced with practiced victimhood. You're being vindictive. This isn't who you are. You're not like this. I leaned back in the leather chair in the study, one leg crossed over the other, staring at the untouched scotch in my hand. No, I said calmly. This is who I've been. You just never noticed. You filed the deed? Seriously? You went to the county, and what? Tried to steal my family's house. You signed it away. That's not. She cut herself off. That clause wasn't real. That was just buried fine print. You can't actually. Your signature is notarized. Silence. Not dramatic silence. Not tear-filled, trembling silence. No, this was the silence of realization. Of the moment when the engine light flickers and you finally accept it's not just a glitch. She cleared her throat, softer now. You don't have to do this. I didn't do anything. You did. I just filed it. You're making a point. Okay, I get it. You're angry. But there are other ways. I hung up. At 11:12, her mother called. Didn't even say hello. Just launched into it. You smug little parasite. I told her not to marry down. Told her you'd drag her into your world. But we let you in anyway. We gave you a seat at the table. And this is how you repay us. I let her rant. Let the acid pour out. All that repressed rage finally slipping out now that the checkbooks were under threat. You want revenge? Fine. But you're messing with something bigger than a grudge. That house is tied into our legacy trust. That's where we host fundraisers. That's where we... Tell your attorney, I interrupted, to read paragraph 12. She went quiet. Paragraph 12? She repeated. Yes. The clause under the trust fallback structure. The one that activates upon dissolution of marriage. The one you signed. This isn't over. We have lawyers. So do I replied. But mine already read the clause. Yours are just now flipping through their inboxes. She started to say something else, some hissed threat, maybe, but I ended the call. Then I sat there, staring at the fireplace, phone still glowing faintly in my hand. No messages, no texts, just the slow, creeping understanding that none of them had read what they signed. None of them had thought it would matter. Because people like her, and the entire family she came from, believe that paper only has power when it benefits them. They forget it holds equal power in the other direction. They confuse quiet men with harmless ones. They forget that silence isn't submission. Sometimes it's planning. I glanced at the framed photo on the bookshelf. The one from our 5th anniversary at the lake house. She's beaming in it, hands on my chest, like she owned me. I stood up, walked over, and turned the frame face down. Not out of anger. Just because it was irrelevant now. The phone buzzed again. Her name. I let it go to voicemail. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was powerlessness. Real, unfamiliar powerlessness. The kind you feel when the lawyer you paid too much tells you there's nothing they can undo because the document is airtight, and your daughter laughed while signing it. They used me as a placeholder. Now I was the lock, and they'd handed me the only key. The meeting happened Wednesday morning, in a downtown office that smelled like eucalyptus and bankruptcy. Her father's attorneys, 4 of them, sat around a long glass table like they were prepping for trial, even though they already knew the verdict. The junior partner looked barely old enough to rent a car. The senior partner had a jaw like a cartoon senator and eyes that hadn't blinked since the Reagan administration. And in front of them sat a thick stack of documents with my name printed cleanly at the top. The door opened, and her father stormed in, red in the face, tie loosened like he'd already tried to strangle someone with it. Fix it, he snapped, before even sitting down. Reverse it. File a stay. Do whatever you have to do. The senior partner raised an eyebrow. Mr. Alder, we're not in court. It's a deed transaction. A fraudulent one, he barked. The partner leaned back, tapping the page in front of him with one polished fingernail. It's not fraudulent. There's no evidence of coercion, no improper filing. The notary is clean. The separation was filed in accordance with state law, and the clause is enforceable. She didn't know what she was signing, he snapped. Respectfully, the junior attorney interjected, flipping through the packet with a nervous twitch. The clause was plain English, not buried in legalese, not hidden behind subtext or referenced appendices. Page 7, 3rd paragraph, bolded and initialed. She thought it was ceremonial, her father yelled. She thought it was one of those throwaway clauses. That's not a legal defense, the senior partner said, voice flat. Silence. For a full beat, nobody moved. Then the junior partner spoke again, softly, almost apologetically. Technically, she gifted her share contingent on divorce. It's a conditional transfer that was activated by the filing. Her father's head snapped toward him. She what? The kid hesitated. I mean, it's legally phrased as a reversion of beneficial interest, but in effect, it's a gift. A pre-signed release. The property now belongs to your son-in-law. Permanently. Barring an incredibly specific challenge, which would almost certainly fail. Her father stood slowly, one hand on the back of the chair, his knuckles pale. He looked around the table like someone had pulled a magic trick, and everyone forgot to clap. We used him as a shield, he said, voice low and bitter. We used him to hide the deed, hide the lawsuit, shield us from exposure. He turned to the junior partner, eyes like broken glass. He used us as a weapon. No one corrected him, because it was true. That's exactly what I did. I let them place me in front of the blast, and then I rewired the detonation cord. He paced now, muttering. I told her to marry someone obedient. Quiet. Someone who'd know his place. She did, the senior partner said flatly. He just redefined where that place was. He stopped, jaw twitching. Her brother had already texted me earlier that morning, something unintelligible in all caps, full of rage and spelling errors. I hadn't responded. There wasn't anything to say. They were in a room full of degrees and retainer agreements, and none of it could unsign the paper. You can't unscrew a screw that's been stripped clean. Eventually, the senior partner gathered the documents into a neat stack. We can issue a challenge, but discovery will show everything was filed legally. Worse, the public records will reinforce that your daughter voluntarily has signed the interest. All it'll do is generate headlines. Her father stared at the folder. Then what can we do? The lawyer gave him the same look I'd seen 1,000 times from plumbers, mechanics, and IT guys when someone asks if they can fix something that's been on fire for 3 hours. Accept it, he said, and maybe learn to read what you sign. For the first time in my life, I felt something I never expected around that man. Pity. Because a man who thought he was untouchable had just learned what it feels like when the paper you thought was a shield turns out to be a sword. And it's pointed the other way. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon. The kind of midweek lull when nothing dramatic happens and everyone pretends things are fine. I was on the back deck of the lake house, my lake house now, replacing one of the rotted steps with a cedar board I'd cut myself. I wasn't in a hurry. The weather was good, and the hammer in my hand felt better than any lawyer ever could. Then I heard tires crunch gravel. Fast. Angry. I didn't even look up at first. Just kept working. Another nail. Another breath. The yelling started before the engine stopped. You bastard. Her brother, red in the face, stormed out of his Audi like he was late to a duel. Shirt untucked, tie half wrapped like a failed noose. Behind him, his wife lingered in the car, refusing to look up from her phone. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just about business. He marched right across the lawn like he still owned it. Like he hadn't just lost the last card his family had left. That property was supposed to pass to us, he shouted, gesturing wildly at the trees, the shoreline, the stone path he once bragged about designing. It was structured. The trust said. The trust, I interrupted, setting the hammer down slowly, was dissolved this morning. He blinked. What? Check the registry. As of 9:13 a.m., the charitable reversion clause kicked in after the asset reclassification. Standard procedure. Your family's signatures made it easy. That was our legacy, he roared. You married in, not up. I smiled. Picked up the hammer again. Exactly. I married in. And you all wrote me out. So I wrote myself back in. His fists clenched like he wanted to swing, but he didn't. Because he knew. Somewhere deep in that finance degree brain of his, he understood. There wasn't a punch on earth that could undo a paper trail. The inheritance they'd structured so meticulously, real estate, residuals, mineral rights, the whole generational fantasy, had been anchored to the assumption that I was temporary, that I was decoration. The friendly blue-collar son-in-law who wore plaid to family functions and brought smoked meat to charity galas. But they'd tied the future of their legacy to a document that assumed my silence equaled submission. And then she signed it. And now, with the updated deed, and the chain of beneficial ownership snapped clean by legal separation, all fallback contingencies defaulted to the sole title holder. Me. He looked like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. Your kids were going to inherit this land, he muttered, almost to himself. Still possible, I said. They just need to fill out a volunteer application. We'll be hosting veterans retreats here now. I've got the paperwork if you're interested. His jaw twitched. I turned and walked back toward the steps, feeling the grain of the wood beneath my palm. Real. Solid. Mine. You're petty, he shouted after me. You're acting like some small man with a grudge. No, I said without turning around. I'm acting like a man who read the fine print. There was silence behind me. Just wind, and maybe the faint whimper of ego deflating in real time. The inheritance hadn't just vanished. It had been absorbed. Neutralized. Rewired. Their legacy, their name, their weekend wine-sipping brag reel. All of it now belonged to the man they called background. And the best part? They couldn't even sell the story. Because on paper, it looked clean. Legal. Strategic. She posted a selfie. I posted a boundary. They handed me the deed. I handed them the consequences. Thursday morning, 7:58 a.m., I walked into the county annex building with a folder under my arm and a cup of black coffee I didn't drink. Same hallway, same chipped tile floors, same tired clerk behind the same frosted glass window. She smiled when she saw me this time. Not recognition, just familiarity. Like I was part of the furniture now. I need to file a transfer, I said, placing the documents on the counter. She slid them closer and glanced at the cover sheet. Transfer of ownership to a nonprofit land trust? I nodded. She scanned the next few pages. Named after your grandfather? Yeah, I said. He was Army. Quiet man. Used to bring wounded guys from his unit to this lake after the war. Said it helped them sleep. Her expression changed. Not pity. Not all. Just respect. The kind people don't often give out in public buildings before 9 a.m. She stamped the documents. We'll process it today. You'll get confirmation within a few hours. Appreciate it. And that was it. No press conference. No Instagram post. Just a permanent, irrevocable shift in reality, completed in under 12 minutes. I got back home and typed one email. One recipient group. No flourish. Just the subject line, final notice. Body. Effective today, the lakefront estate has been transferred to the DM Tallinn Land Trust, a nonprofit entity designated for public conservation and veterans' wellness initiatives. All prior familial rights of access, usage, and inheritance are void. Any visitation requires written permission from the current trustee. Please direct all correspondence to the trust's legal contact on file. Regards, DM Tallinn. Trustee, Tallinn Land Trust. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone, unplugged the router, and walked out onto the porch. The sun was already beginning its descent, painting streaks of gold and rose across the lake's surface. Not a ripple in sight. The kind of stillness that feels earned, not given. I leaned on the rail, watching as the shadows stretched long over the dock. The same dock where she once kissed me before family dinners, before money entered the conversation, before I learned that my silence was their favorite accessory, where I used to think belonging meant being invited. Now the dock was mine. The land was mine. The history was mine. And soon, it would be shared, not with them, but with men and women who actually deserved it, who knew what scars were, who didn't measure worth in surnames or alumni clubs, who needed a place like this more than another cocktail fundraiser ever would. No shouting came. No phone rang. No lawyer knocked. It was done. The house was quiet. Not the fragile quiet of walking on eggshells, but the satisfying hush of a room after a storm has passed and nothing that didn't matter survived. They would scream, of course. File noise. Maybe PR threats. Maybe another cousin ranting about reparations and family legacy. But they'd be yelling at a brick wall with a nonprofit title. Because this was the final filing. There was no clause to reverse it. No loophole to wiggle through. Only a permanent signature, under a name they had laughed at for a decade, now etched into a public record. She posted a smirk. I posted a conservation trust. And the only thing louder than her silence now was mine. Saturday afternoon, 3:11 p.m. I heard the screech before I saw her. Tires on gravel. Too fast, too late. Her car, white, polished, always leased, skidded to a stop in front of the estate's private gate. The same gate her father insisted on having custom forged with the family crest welded dead center. I had it replaced 2 days ago. Now it simply read, Tallinn Trust, private access only. She got out still dressed like a real estate agent trying to hide the divorce. Oversized sunglasses, oversized bag, oversized attitude. She marched up to the keypad, punched in the old code, 0 response. She tried again. Still nothing. Then she looked up at the security camera. Straight into it, like she could will it to blink. 30 seconds later, one of the new security staff stepped outside the gatehouse. Calm, firm, uniformed. Ma'am, this is private property. You're not authorized to enter. She yanked her glasses off. What the hell do you mean? I lived here. I know the owner. Yes, ma'am, he replied. The owner has issued a full access restriction. No exceptions without written permission. I'm his wife, she snapped full volume now. The guard didn't flinch. Not anymore. I stepped out then. She turned toward me, lips already parting for whatever performance she'd rehearsed in the car. But I didn't give her the floor. Just walked up to the gate and handed her a single sheet of paper. 1 page. Large font. Simple words. Straight from the trust. Finalized, I said. You can contest it. But the clause will hold. She stared at the paper, blinking hard. Her mouth moved like she was trying to find the right tone. Diplomatic, soft, maybe a little regretful, but none of them stuck. Finally, her voice cracked. This was supposed to be mine. You said this would always be ours. You, she paused. Her breathing hitched. You don't do this. You're not like this. I tilted my head. I wasn't, I said, until I read what you wrote under that selfie. She looked down again at the paper, her grip faltering. The sunlight hit her face just right. And for the first time, I saw her without the armor. No more followers. No filters. Just a woman outside the gate of a life she used to control. Tears welled. Not from sadness, no. From disbelief. From the moment her story lost its script. You ruined it, she whispered. No, I said. You signed it. She looked up, eyes wild. So that's it. You win. I gave a small shrug. You upgraded. So did I. I turned around. Walked back toward the porch. The same porch where we once toasted our 10th anniversary. The same porch where her father once told me, while 2 glasses deep in scotch, you'll never own this. But I appreciate you pretending. I reached the door, opened it, and stepped inside. Behind me, no screams. Just one broken exhale. The sound of someone realizing too late that the chessboard wasn't empty. It just had fewer obvious pieces. The door clicked shut. And just like that, she was on the outside, looking in on everything she signed away. One page, one signature, and one man she never bothered to know until it was far, far too late.